Welcome back Year 4. I'm hoping you've had a lovely week off and had some sort of fun and some relaxing time as well. It's Monday the 22nd of February and this is a maths lesson for my maths group. Now we finished last half term, we were looking at some shape work and we're going to carry on with that work in maths for the next couple of weeks. And today we're going to compare and classify quadrilaterals. And I think I've already spoken to you about spelling that word quadrilateral correctly. And just make sure you do that today, children. So just a little bit of vocabulary to start us off this morning. And you can see I've got two words there. I've got quadrilateral and polygon. These are two words that are going to come up in our lesson today. I wonder if you can remember what quadrilateral means. This word quadrilateral with the prefix quad at the front of the word. Do you remember? You're right, it's a four-sided polygon. And I said, didn't I, last time I spoke about quadrilaterals, I always think about a quad bike, and a quad bike has four wheels, and that reminds me when I think of a quadrilateral, it has four sides. So polygon, that's really just a mathematical name for shape. And definition of shape with at least three straight sides and angles. Okay, at least three straight sides and angles, a polygon. So we're going to be looking at that today. We're going to be looking at different quadrilaterals and learning how to compare and how to classify and group them. Okay. So another thing that you need to know before we go into today's lesson is there's some more vocabulary here, parallel lines. Now I think you may have come across this last year a little bit in year 3, but parallel lines are lines on a shape that make, I always talk about a train track or a ladder, and you can see that this might be a ladder, this one here. This might be a train track, the lines, and this might be a train track. And the two lines will never meet because they are staying in a ladder shape or a train track shape, okay? And quite often with parallel lines, children, they're marked on a shape like this. So you have an arrow on this side, and this side here is parallel to this one here. Oh, I think that just, I don't know why that keeps coming up there. Sorry, this one here, so you can see these two sides are parallel, and then this top side is parallel to this one at the bottom, and the arrow is showing me that that's parallel to each other. So this shape, this rectangle, we can say has two pairs of parallel sides. Okay, two pairs of parallel sides, and they always come in pairs. We always talk about parallel sides or parallel lines as pairs. Okay, so there's examples of parallel lines, and just to show you, these are not parallel lines. If you were to continue these lines, they would cross. And you don't want train tracks to cross because then the train would come off the lines, wouldn't it? And you can see I've given you some different examples there that look close to parallel lines, but they're not, because they're moving away from each other, and that one's moving near to each other. It's not going to be parallel. It's not in that train track shape or ladder shape. Okay, so that's parallel lines. You're going to need to remember that for your task today. Okay, so quadrilaterals are polygons with four sides. And here we have lots of examples of quadrilaterals. Some of these you will know. Some of them you might not know the name, or you may have forgotten their names, okay? Now I want you to pause the video in a minute and think. Have a little think. How would you group them? How would you put them into different groups? Would you put certain ones together? Would you put other ones in another group? And why would you do that? And children, it's not about the colours, of course. You know, they're all different colours, but we're definitely thinking about the polygon, the shape. Okay, so pause the video for a moment and have a think about how you might group these different quadrilaterals. Okay, so let's learn. We'll think about, have a look in how the children, different children in the Maths No Problem books, how they group these. So this little girl said she put these four quadrilaterals together in the same group because they each have four equal sides. So we've got three shapes there that you know. We've got some squares, they're all equal size, and we've got this one, shape R. Now R is a rhombus, okay? Rhombus, look how it's spelled. Interesting. And it has 4 equal sides, right? If you were to get your ruler and measure, there would be 4 equal sides. How is it different then to a square? Have a think. How is that different? Because squares have equal sides. Well, the rhombus, if you look at it, doesn't have any of those right angles that we've been learning about, okay? It has 4 equal sides, but it does not have right angles like our squares. So that's how she chose to group some of them. This little boy said, I put these 3 quadrilaterals into the same group because each has 4 right angles. So he's thinking now about the right angles. He's got 2 squares and he's got a rectangle as well, okay? And he's put those together because he thinks they can be grouped quite nicely. And he's right, because of those 4 right angles, they do belong in a group together. They are similar. So, what do you think the rule is here? Somebody has sorted the shapes. We've got these here and we've got these in group 2 here. Why don't you pause and think about what the rule might be? And I want you to think about the parallel sides, the parallel lines I talked about just at the beginning of the lesson. So pause the lesson, have a little think. What do you think the rule will be in these 2 groups? Okay, so I'm hoping you thought, well, actually, all of these shapes in group 1 have 2 pairs of parallel sides. Yeah, 2 pairs of those parallel sides. And in group 2, they just have 1 pair of parallel sides. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So you can see, look at E. This line here is parallel to this one here. Yeah. If you look at N, this line here in this shape is parallel to this line here. These 2 either side, they look as if they're parallel, but if you look really closely, they're not. Eventually, this side would eventually cross this line. And A, this line, is parallel to this line. What do we call a shape that has 1 pair of parallel lines? We call it a trapezium. There it is at the bottom. A quadrilateral with 1 pair of parallel sides is a trapezium. Look how that's spelt. Nice with a Z there in the middle. Trapezium. 1 pair of parallel sides. You need to remember that for later in your task. Which of the following are squares and why? So we've got 3 shapes, and we know they're 4-sided shapes, and we've got some that we've got some on here that are squares and some that are not. So think, which of these are squares? Right, well, if you're thinking at home, it's E. It's correct. E is the only square. It has 4 equal sides, and it has those right angles as well. Whereas P has 4 equal sides, but remember, it doesn't have the right angles. Do you remember what that's called when it doesn't have the right angles but equal sides? It's almost like the square is being nudged over and pushed over, I always think. It's like a pushed over square. It's the rhombus, okay? And we know that T isn't a square because it hasn't got 4 equal sides. It does have the right angles, but it doesn't have the equal sides. Which of the following are rectangles? And can you explain? So have a think, okay? Have a think, which are rectangles? Okay. Well, this is interesting because D and G are actually rectangles. If you look at the definition of a rectangle, it's 4 right angles, 2 pairs of parallel sides, and opposite sides are equal. So let's look at G. It has the 4 right angles. It has two pairs of parallel sides. That side is parallel to that one. There's one pair. This side is parallel to that one. There's another pair. And the opposite sides are equal. Now, some of you are saying, well, D is a square, but actually D is what we call a special rectangle. It is a square, but it's a special rectangle. I've written it there. A square is a special type of rectangle because it does have those four right angles. It has two pairs of parallel sides and opposite sides are equal. So it still sits in that umbrella of rectangles. It's what we call a special rectangle because all four sides are equal. Okay? Interesting that though, you remember that. Which of the following are trapeziums? Now, do you remember? Trapezium had one pair of parallel sides. So I've got my arrows here to show the parallel sides. Have a little look at these shapes. Can you find one that has one pair of parallel sides? Well, T has two pairs, doesn't it? Because this side is parallel to this side and this side is parallel to this side, and we know that that's a rectangle. Yeah. A, are these sides parallel? No, I don't think they are. We call A a kite. Yeah, A is different. So really that only leaves us with, I don't know, the mouse keeps going a bit mad today again. Go away. This only leaves us with this side on C being parallel to this side on C. Can you see there's our ladder on those two sides there, yeah? Trapezium, one pair of parallel lines, okay? Lots to remember in vocabulary today, children. Now, two pairs of parallel lines, we will call it a parallelogram. There's a really difficult word to spell, parallelogram, okay? Two pairs of parallel lines, okay? But also you've got to remember that a parallelogram won't have any of those right angles either. So I'm looking at I. Can you see this side is parallel to this side? This side is parallel to this side. So two pairs of parallel lines, parallelogram. Okay, no right angles. Okay, so that D there is not a parallelogram because we haven't got the right angles. We've got right angles on there. That one has got right angles. The parallelogram doesn't have right angles. And B, if you look at B, well, this side isn't parallel to this side. Okay, and R again is just a quadrilateral. It hasn't got pairs of parallel lines. Okay. So what am I asking you to do on Teams? You have to name some shapes. You might have to go back through this video and pause it and look at it. You might have to be thinking about spelling the shapes correctly, thinking about the parallel sides, parallel lines, and naming those shapes. That's the first task. You then have to draw some quadrilaterals and label them. It says draw a square, draw a rectangle, a rhombus, and a parallelogram. And I want you to use a ruler for that, children. Okay? If you can't download that or print that off, you could just do that on paper and then upload it via a photograph or send me an email. Those are the ways you can upload your work through Teams or email year4@ssjs.co.uk. And don't forget, children, Thursday this week at 10:30, we're having a Zoom meeting, and double check that that email hasn't gone into your parents' junk mail, because sometimes they've been going in there. And I hope to see you on the Zoom meeting. I hope that's been good this morning for you, children, learning about quadrilaterals. Really work hard on spelling all those wonderful quadrilaterals correctly and naming them correctly as well. Bye for now.